So it's no secret by now that my favorite style of decks are control. I'm not a really big fan of huge combo decks that build unbreakable boards. I don't really like that style. OTK decks are fine. If you remember back to my Cubic deck, I like Cubic specifically because of how much they counter the meta, not really because it's an OTK deck or anything like that. Most of the decks that you will find that I play and enjoy are control decks, just like this one. This is a really unique control deck that I haven't really seen played ever, and that is Subterror Shaddolls. So this is going to be the deck profile for it. And really quick, I want to mention it while it's on my memory. I do have a brand new mic, so if you guys hear the quality difference, let me know down below. Everything should sound a lot better from my channel going forward, so for anyone who has been watching my videos up until this point, I really appreciate you for tolerating the really bad microphone quality. So I appreciate you, but with all that out of the way, we'll jump on into it. So first I'm going to go card by card, just giving you the names, and then I'll go back through and explain everything. So first we have 1 copy of Maxi, 3 copies of Subterror Fiendess, 1 copy of Shaddoll Falco, 1 copy of Shaddoll Hedgehog, 1 copy of Ash Blossom, 2 copies of Reeshaddoll Wendi, 2 copies of Squamata, 1 copy of Dragon, 3 copies of Guru, Subterror Guru, 1 copy of Naelshaddoll Ariel, 1 copy of Shaddoll Beast, 1 copy of Behemoth Umastryx, 3 copies of Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju, 1 copy of Subterror Behemoth Phospheroglacier, and 1 copy of Subterror Behemoth Ultramafus. That's for the monsters. And then for spells, we have 1 copy of Terraforming, 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion, 1 copy of Lightning Storm, 3 copies of the Hidden City, 1 copy of Subterror's Cave Clash, 2 copies of Naelshaddoll Fusion. Then for the traps, we have 2 copies of Subterror Final Battle, 2 copies of Subterror Succession, 1 copy of Reeshaddoll Incarnation, 2 copies of World Legacy Pawns, 1 copy of Shaddoll Schism, and 2 copies of Junk Sleep. Then for the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Naelshaddoll Winda, 1 copy of Wendigo, 2 copies of Apkallone, 1 copy of Grysta, 2 copies of Construct, 1 copy of Shekinaga. Sorry, I am just butchering some of these names today. 2 copies of Behemoth Fiendess, 3 copies of the Link Shaddoll Construct, and 1 copy of Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. So now I will explain everything, but before I do want to bring up that this is not the absolute most optimized build that I envision for it. I just do not have enough crafting materials on this account currently to create the 4 extra cards that I really need. If I was building this deck completely optimally, it would have 3 Effect Veiler and 3 Lightning Storm. I just wanted to bring that up now. So if you have the crafting points and if you have the ability to get those cards, definitely play those at 3. As far as what to take out, I'd say you could take out the World Legacy Pawns, Ash Blossom, since it's not really going to help you too much at 1 copy anyways. The Kaijus you could take out, just depending on personal preference, but for what I have right now, this is the build that I've been running so far, and it's done really well so far, and it's been a lot of fun. So now I will go ahead and explain card by card. So the reason why Effect Veiler is so good, other than being just a simple hand trap that can negate monster effects, it's a light monster, and the only light monster that we play in the deck, so it allows us to summon Naelshaddoll Construct. if your opponent has a monster summoned from the extra deck, Shaddoll Fusion will send the materials from your deck to the graveyard for the fusion summon, so you can easily summon Construct that way. I'll just go over the hand traps or the staples first. We have Ash Blossom. Everyone knows what this does by now, but also it is a fire target for Grysta if you're desperate. Then we have 3 Kaijus. Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. This is the best Kaiju because of its low attack points. I find Kaijus are super underrated in this game, in this format. Because I think of Kaijus as kind of filling a similar role to Nibiru, where Nibiru is made to kind of destroy boards, before they're even made, but Gameciel is to help you destroy boards after it's made. But I think Gameciel is a lot better in the best of 1 format, because Gameciel is great against decks that are not very combo heavy, whereas Nibiru is only good against decks that are combo heavy, that of course summon 5 or more times in 1 turn. Not every deck does that, especially in the ladder, so Gameciel is much better in a best of 1 format, because if you're in a best of 3 format, then I would go with Nibiru instead, since you can side it in. That way you know if your opponent is playing a combo deck or not. But with Gameciel, when you don't know for sure what deck your opponent is playing, this is a great choice to help get over problematic monsters. But next we'll talk about the Subterror monsters. So we have Fiendess, one of the main Subterror monsters that you'll be using. When your opponent activates a card or effect, so monster, spell, or trap, quick effect, send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target a Subterror monster you control, negate the opponent's effect's activation, then change your targeted monster to face down defense position. So that was a lot of text, but basically you discard it from your hand to negate an opponent's card by flipping one of your Subterrors from face up to face down. Then it has another effect which does come up for recovery plays. You can target one face-up monster you control, change it to face-down defense position, and if you do, special summon a Subterror monster from your hand or graveyard in face-up or face-down defense position. So that can be really good to recycle some of your Subterror monsters that have gotten into the graveyard. It can recycle itself, and it can special summon itself from the graveyard, which I think is really cool. And its negation effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, so if you do have multiple Fiendess on the field, you can still use it, so you can kind of get some advantage through there. But your main source of advantage will be in Subterror Guru. This is this is the most important Subterror card in the deck. Flip effect, you can add a Subterror card from your deck to your hand, except itself. That's card, so monster, spell, or trap. Well, you won't really be searching the spells, but traps you'll be wanting to search a lot. But also you'll want to search for Fiendess, because Guru himself, once you flip it up, gets you a negate in the form of Fiendess. If that wasn't good enough already, you can target one other face-up monster on the field, so that could be yours or your opponent's, and that does come into play several times where you want to flip your own cards face down, or where you want to target your own cards. But anyways, you target one other face-up monster on the field, change that monster and this card to face-down defense position. And if you control another Subterror card, this is a quick effect. So that's really good. It is a little difficult to get off the quick effect part of it early game. So really expect yourself to be using Guru during your turn to flip or to be a walking Book of Moon, because pulling it off during your opponent's turn requires you to have a Subterror card face up, and that's not going to be very often early game, but there are definitely ways, and I'll get to that once we get to the trap cards. Then we have the Subterror Behemoths. So Umastryx is one of the best ones. As a flip effect, you just target a monster your opponent controls and banish it. And then the next part, all of the Behemoth Subterrors have this effect. When a face-up monster you control is flipped face down, if you control no face-up monsters, special summon this card from your hand in defense position. And once per turn, you can change this card to face-down defense position. So all of the Behemoths have that last effect where if a Subterror monster you control is flipped face down, you can special summon it from your hand, and each one has the effect where once per turn you can flip them from face up to face down. So just as an example for how this would work, if you have a whole hand where you have one Umastryx, one Glacier, and one Ultra, I'm just going to call it Ultra. If you have all three of those in your hand and say, Fiendess in your hand and Guru in the graveyard, just as an example. If you normal summon Fiendess, you use Fiendess to flip herself face down to special summon Guru from the graveyard and face down. Because Fiendess was just flipped face down, you can special summon Umastryx from your hand, then use Umastryx to flip it face down, then you can special summon Ultra from your hand, use Ultra, flip it face down, then special summon Glacier from your hand, and then use its effect, flip it face down. So that's going to be your main way of getting the Behemoth monsters to your field. But it's just anytime one of your monsters is flipped face down and you control no other face-up monsters. So that's a case where you may use Guru to flip your own cards face down. Your trap cards can flip your trap card Final Battle can flip cards face down. Junk Sleep, I'll get to that later, but it's a great way of flipping your cards face down. So there's plenty of ways to do it other than that convoluted example that I just gave you, but whatever. Then we have the Shaddoll monsters. So each of the Shaddoll monsters have two different effects, one that happens when they're flipped face up, and one that happens when they're sent to the graveyard. Sent from anywhere to the graveyard, from deck, from hand to field. It doesn't matter where you're sending them from. If they go to the graveyard, you get these effects. So you have Falco. If it's flipped, you special summon a Shaddoll monster from your graveyard in face-down defense position. But if this card is sent to the graveyard, you special summon itself in face-down defense position. I think of this as kind of like the Danger Tsukinoko, I think that's what it is, of this deck, where no matter what, if it's discarded, you get some kind, or no matter what effect you get off, you get some kind of advantage out of it. So you're either flipping it up to special summon another monster, or when it's sent to the graveyard, it special summons itself. So you're pretty much always guaranteed a body from this one. Then we have Hedgehog. If it's flipped, you add a Shaddoll spell or trap card to your hand. If it's sent to the graveyard, you add a Shaddoll monster to your hand. Wendy. When it's flipped, you special summon a Shaddoll monster from your deck in face up or face down defense position. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Shaddoll monster from your deck in face down defense position. So if it's flipped, you can basically the difference between the two, if it's flipped, you can summon the Shaddoll monster in face up or face down, you get a choice. But if it's sent to the graveyard, then it has to be in face down defense. But either way, both of them summon a Shaddoll monster from your deck. Then we have Squamata. When it's flipped, you target a monster on the field, destroy it, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you can send a Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard. So when this is sent to the graveyard, you can send any Shaddoll card to the graveyard to get their graveyard effect based on what you need. Then we have Dragon. When it's flipped, you target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand, whereas Squamata is only monster removal. This one can remove monster spells or traps. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can destroy a spell or trap card on the field. And And the last one, we have Shaddoll Beast. When it's flipped, draw 2, discard 1, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you just draw a free card. So next we'll get into the spells. So we want Terraforming to search our the hidden city. This is one of the most important field spells in the game, or in this deck, or this is one of the most important cards of this deck, I'm sorry. When this card is activated, you add a Subterror monster from your deck to your hand, and once per turn you can change one face-down defense position Subterror monster you control to face-up attack or defense position. And then once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, switch a Subterror monster from face-down to face-up, then negate the attack. So that last effect won't really come into play too much, because usually your opponent won't be attacking into you anyways because they know about your flip effects. But the first two effects are amazing. If you activate Hidden City, you can search Guru, set Guru, activate Hidden City to flip Guru up, to search for Fiendess, and just from this one card, this one field spell, which you play 4 copies of by having Terraforming, just from that field spell, you have a negation setup and a walking Book of Moon. So it's really good. We have Subterror Cave Clash. This is one of the cards that I would take out for one of the Lightning Storms or the Effect Veiler, but it can come into play sometimes, but only 1 copy is all you need because this is searchable through Guru. All Subterror monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense for every set monster on the field. And then if your Subterror monster inflicts battle damage, you can special summon a Subterror, or you can add a Subterror card from your graveyard to your hand. It doesn't really come up too often. You don't really need it too often, but it can help in some situations. Then we have Shaddoll Fusion. Special summon a Shaddoll Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. And if your opponent controls an extra deck monster, you can also use monsters in your deck as fusion material. So this is really good. One of the great things about about combining Subterrors and these flip effect cards with fusioning or fusion summoning is that you can fusion summon with monsters that are face down. Whereas Xyz monsters, Synchro monsters, Link monsters, all of those require your material to be face up on the field. Fusion summoning can use face down monsters, which is really useful, and this deck definitely abuses that mechanic a lot. Then we have Naelshaddoll Fusion, which is basically the same thing, except it can't summon from, or it can't send materials from the deck, but it is a quick play spell, so you can activate this during either player's turn. One of the best cards you can summon with it during your opponent's turn is Apkallone, but we'll get to that once we get to the extra deck. Lightning Storm. This is one of the few decks that can really run Lightning Storm super effectively, because the requirements to activate Lightning Storm is if you control no face-up cards. So you can control cards, just no face-up cards. And your entire deck is all about having face-down cards. So you can have an entire field of monsters that are set face-down, still activate Lightning Storm to destroy everything, and then kind of go off from there. The only thing, there's only a few cards that you do want to watch out for, because they do kind of clash with this. The Hidden City, as a field spell, it does stay face up. World Legacy Pawns, Junk Sleep, and Schism, those are all continuous, as well as Subterror Cave Clash. But the main spell or trap cards that you use, Final Battle and Succession, those flip themselves back face down, so they won't conflict with Storm. But you will run into some cases where you may need to, where you already have Hidden City face up, but you have a second copy in your hand. You can set your second copy of Hidden City on top of the one that's already there to make it to where you don't have any face up cards, then activate Lightning Storm, and you can flip over the hidden city that you just set and play from there. But yeah, Lightning Storm, so much more useful in this deck than most decks because it's a lot harder for it to be a brick in this deck. Now the traps. So we'll actually go over the Shaddoll traps first. Reeshaddoll Incarnation. Target a Shaddoll monster in your graveyard, special summon in face up or face down defense position. This can also summon your fusion monsters back if you need be. But then you can banish this card and a Shaddoll card from your graveyard, and then either flip a card or a monster you control from face down to face up or face up to face down. And that doesn't have to be Shaddoll monsters, so you can also use this on your Subterror cards, which is really good. Shaddoll Schism. You can fusion summon a Shaddoll monster by banishing the fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard, but it cannot attack directly. But then you can send to the graveyard a monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as that monster. This is really good because we pretty much run a Shaddoll monster of every attribute. We have Dark, Wind, Dark again, Fire, Light, and Earth. I think the only one that we're missing is Wind. No, we have Wind. It's Water. Yeah, Water is the only one that we're missing, but you're not going to really run into Water very much anyways. So you can summon any of these to basically just send a monster from your opponent's field to the graveyard with the matching attribute. Usually it's going to be Dark or Light. Those are the two most common attributes. But more importantly, Schism lets you banish materials from your graveyard to get off the effect, and that's really useful for this deck. And actually, while I'm on the subject of cards in the graveyard, I just realized I forgot to mention the first effect for both of these behemoths. So the flip effect for Glacier, you just send a card from your deck to the graveyard. So when this is flipped up, you can send any of your Shaddoll monsters to the graveyard to trigger their effects. And then Ultra, when it's flipped face up, you change all other face up monsters to face down. Anyways, back to the traps. World Legacy Pawns. As a continuous trap card, once per turn you can target a face down monster you control, change it to face up attack. So this one isn't as useful as your Subterror Final Battle because this one can only switch from face down to face up. It can't go the other way. So with that, we'll go on to Subterror Final Battle. So you can choose, this card has 4 different effects. You can choose one and then you set it face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. You can either flip a Subterror monster from face down to face up or face up to face down. So you can choose one of those. Or you can choose the attack and defense of a Subterror monster on the field becomes equal to its combined original attack and defense. Or this turn activated effects of Subterror cards cannot be negated. All 4 of those effects are phenomenal in different situations, but just to give you some perspective, the third effect there, where its attack becomes its combined attack and defense, that will boost Guru up to 34. Yeah, 30. No. Yeah. Yeah, 3,400 attack. So 3,400 attack Guru, great. Uma goes up to 4,700. So it boosts your Subterror monsters up pretty high. It can come in really handy, especially when your opponent when you don't really have an out to an opponent's card other than battle. You can wait until your opponent attacks into your monster, activate this during damage calculation to force their monster to be destroyed by battle. The last effect, though, is what I usually use when I want to use Guru as a quick effect. So in this game, to do this, you want to make sure your toggle is on. That is very important. your toggle must be on. Not auto, not off, it has to be on. During your opponent's turn, you can activate Final Battle, declare the fourth effect, and then immediately you will have the opportunity to chain your Subterror Guru. Because you technically control a Subterror card, Guru's Book of Moon effect becomes a quick effect. So you can flip itself and another card on the field face down, and then Final Battle goes back face down, and then you can continue from there. If you have another card that can flip Guru back up, you can get its search effect, or if you have any of your Subterror Behemoth cards in your hand, you'll be able to summon them. But this is one of your easiest ways to use Guru as a quick effect by activating the trap card. Now, if you have the opportunity to activate one of the other effects, you can. You don't have to do the fourth one. The fourth one is just it just makes the most sense, because if you're using one of the other ones to flip it from face up or face down, it won't really be too relevant because you're just flipping it anyways. Although now that I think about it, with the way chain resolution actually works, disregard what I was saying about the fourth effect. If I'm thinking about this correctly, you can activate Final Battle. Never mind. So what I was thinking is you can declare the effect to change a face down Subterror monster to face up attack, then chain Guru to flip itself face down, and then this will resolve flipping it back up. But that wouldn't work because you would have to already have a set Subterror monster to be able to declare this effect. So never mind about that. Fourth effect is one that you'll always be able to resolve alongside Guru to make its quick effect live, so that's why I recommend using that one. Then we have Subterror Succession. This card is amazing in this deck with the combination of Shaddolls. Activate one of these effects. You can either send a monster from your hand or field to the graveyard. If you do, add a flip monster from your deck to your hand with the same attribute but different name, or send a flip monster from your hand to the graveyard and add a monster from your deck to your hand with the same attribute but a lower original level. So that alone is really flexible. One of them has the restriction of you're sending any monster to add a specifically flip monster. The other one can add any monster, but it just has to have the same attribute and lower level. What makes this card so crazy is you're able to send your Shaddoll cards from your hand to the graveyard to add a different Shaddoll card from your deck to your hand, and then whatever Shaddoll card you just sent to the graveyard gets its effect since it was sent to the graveyard. So as an example, their attributes of course will have to match, which is fine because most of the Shaddoll cards are dark, with the exception of Wendi and Ariel. Those are the only two that are not darks. All these other ones are dark. But just as an example, you can send Falco to the graveyard from your hand to add Dragon to your hand. Falco will special summon itself from the graveyard, and you just went +1 because Succession has the same effect as Final Battle, where afterwards you set it face down instead of sending it to the graveyard, so you can keep using Succession every single turn to gain advantage off of your Shaddoll cards, or you can use it, basically to trade in one Subterror monster for another Subterror monster, depending on what you need. So last main deck card that we will talk about here is Junk Sleep. This card is amazing. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, change all face down defense position monsters you control to face up attack position. Then during the end phase, you can change all monsters you control to face down defense position. And this is during either player's turn as well. So this is really good. You can flip all of your monsters up, get all of their effects off. During the end phase, you flip them all face down. That will trigger your behemoths in your hand to special summon them. So like if you have Uma in your hand, it gets special summoned. And then, you know, if your opponent summons a monster, you flip Uma up, banish their card, or banish a monster they control. So Junk Sleep, it goes crazy. It helps you trigger so many of these effects. It's fun. It's fun. So now we'll go over the extra deck. The extra deck, other than the Shaddoll monsters, it does not matter whatsoever. I didn't put any crafting material into the extra deck other than the Shaddoll cards. It's just whatever I pulled. I have 3 constructs, so I just threw it in. Same with the 2 Behemoth Fiendess. You will never really go into your extra deck unless it's your Shaddoll Fusion monsters. You generally want to stay away from summoning the Link monsters because they can't be flipped face down, so that conflicts with your Behemoths, your Lightning Storm. It just kind of conflicts with the deck a little bit, but they're just in there as a very last resort. Also, the 1 Apkallone, I have this from crafting it for my generator deck, and it's a prismatic, so I have to include it in every single deck I make. But anyways, fusion monsters. Winda just requires a Shaddoll monster and Dark monster, cannot be destroyed by card effects, and each player can only summon 1 monster, special summon once per turn, while this card is face up on the field. That last part there, while this card is face up on the field, that's super relevant because with a lot of your cards, you can actually flip Winda face down during your turn, summon all you want, and then flip Winda back face up for your opponent's turn to lock them down to 1 summon. Guru is the main way you'll do that. You'll use Guru, flip your own Winda and itself face down. Then you can flip Guru, search cards, special summon all you want, and then either just by flipping Winda up, by flip summoning her, or using World Legacy Pawns or Junk Sleep, however you have access to, you can flip Winda back up and stop your opponent from summoning more than once. Wendigo, it's mainly here as a Shaddoll fusion monster. You can summon it using Wendi as the wind type. It's mainly there to send Shaddoll monsters to your graveyard if you're desperate to get their effects off. Also, using it with Schism, you can send a wind monster to the graveyard. Apkallone, this is one of the other more important ones. That's why there's 2. All of the 2-ofs in here, I'd say, are mandatory. This is 1-ofs you can definitely take out, except I would keep Shekinaga. Apkallone, 2 Shaddoll monsters with different attributes, cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is special summoned, you can target a face-up card on the field, negate its effects. This is a permanent thing. It always throws me off when I figure out that it's permanent and not till the end of the turn. So it's especially good with Shaddoll Fusion, Naelshaddoll Fusion, and Schism, because you can activate it during your opponent's turn to negate a card on their field permanently. And then if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Shaddoll card from your deck or graveyard to the hand. Same thing with this one, but only spell or trap cards. And this one also spell and trap cards when it's sent to the graveyard. Grysta, your only fire target is Ash Blossom. So this is something you're mainly going to summon with Schism by banishing Ash Blossom from your graveyard because you would have already used it. It serves the same purpose as Wendigo. It's a fire type, it's a Shaddoll name, helps you get Shaddoll monsters into the graveyard. and if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a Shaddoll spell or trap in your graveyard, add to your hand. Its first effect can come up when your opponent would special summon a monster while you have a Shaddoll card in your hand. Negate that summon and then send that Shaddoll card from your hand to the graveyard. It just doesn't come up too much because you don't really play too many Shaddoll cards that will stay in your hand. Most of your Shaddoll cards you want in your graveyard and will already be in your graveyard rather than saving them in your hand. That's also the problem with Shekinaga. When a special summon monster activates its effect, you send a Shaddoll card from your hand to your graveyard to negate it. But if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Shaddoll spell trap card from your graveyard to your hand. The main reason why I say this is more important than the other two one-ofs is because it requires an Earth monster. All of your Subterror cards are Earth. So you only have one fire target for Grysta, you only have two, that being your Wendi, only two targets for Wendigo, but you have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 targets for Shekinaga. Then, of course, Naelshaddoll Construct, a Shaddoll monster and a light monster. If it's special summon, you can send a Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard. And then if this card battles a special summon monster, destroy it. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Shaddoll spell or trap card from your graveyard to your hand. As far as the Link monsters, like I said, these aren't really necessary, so you can replace them with anything you want. If you want the Nightmare package, throw it in there. That's fine. Both of the Link monsters here are the in-archetype Link monsters. 2 flip monsters, so both of them can use either archetype to summon them. So you can use only Shaddoll cards to summon Behemoth Fiendess. You can use Subterror cards to summon Construct. So they do work really well together by them all being flip effects. But during your main phase, you can fusion summon a Shaddoll Fusion monster from your extra deck, using materials from your hand or field as material. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can send a Shaddoll card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon this card. One of the main things about this card is it's a light attribute, which you can use to summon Construct. So if you have any 2 flip effect monsters, you can link summon into Construct, use Construct's effect to fusion itself into the Fusion Construct, and that's a good way of doing that. But the big drawback with Link monsters is it can only use material that are face up on your field. Most of your monsters are going to be face down. So the same problem with Fiendess, but this one's good as well. Gains attack equal to combined original levels of the Subterror monsters used for its Link summon. During your main phase, you can send a flip monster from your deck to the graveyard. If you do, special summon a monster from your hand into face down. And then once per turn, if a monster this card points to is flipped face up, add a flip monster from your deck or graveyard to the hand. This one I would say is definitely better than the Fusion Construct for this deck. Because this thing can just send any Shaddoll card from your deck to your graveyard for free. It can add a Shaddoll card from your deck to your hand, or any of your behemoths to your hand. So this card just has a lot more synergy with the whole deck, being able to just, it's super generic in what flip effect monsters it can move where. So I'm sorry for all this being super long-winded. It's kind of a more, or it's a less linear deck than normal, so there was kind of a lot to go into and all of that. If you guys want to see any if you guys want to see any duels with this deck, let me know. Leave it in the comments down below, or like this video to show me that you want to see more of this deck, Subterror Shaddolls. But that's where I'm going to end it here. Leave a like if you liked the video, leave a comment down below with any comments that you have, subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. Also leave a like if you're enjoying the new microphone and the better audio quality. But with all that, Thank you so much for watching, and you all have a great day.